Hello, everybody. All right, so today we want to talk about this subject of whether do I need to send out a 1099 or not. But before we do that, we have some breaking news. The BOI reporting is back in effect. Crazy, right? So we don't know whether we need to file or not. It keeps changing, but now just the Supreme Court said that it's now back in effect. They don't have a filing deadline yet. So last time they allowed 13 days after the prior reinstatement, but now they said that we just file ASAP. So the BOI report, if you don't know what is it, is the Beneficial Ownership Information Report. I did a video about before. This is for any business, for any trust that was established before January 1st, 2024. They originally had a deadline to file this report with FinCEN. Due date originally was January 1st, then it got postponed and they said, no, you don't have to. Then they came back and said, no, you have to. No, you don't have to. Finally, today they said, yes, again, you have to file it. It's mandatory. We don't know the date yet, the new date for the filing deadline, but stay tuned. We'll find out soon. All right, so now let's dive into our presentation because I've been getting a lot of questions about the 1099. Do I need to file? Or maybe not? So let's talk about this so that hopefully from today's presentation, you'll find out whether you need to file or not. All right, let me share my screen here. All right. Do you need to send out 1099s? Today we're going to talk about who needs to send a 1099? What are the types of 1099s? Who do I need to send a 1099 NEC to? What's a W-9? What is the filing deadline? Is there a penalty for not filing? And what if I paid by credit card? Finally, what if I'm the recipient of an incorrect form? So there is a lot to cover in this live, so let's dive in. The first thing, I'd like always to start with a joke because just to lighten up the tax heaviness. So that's the one that I found to be more related to the 1099s. All right, so who needs to send the 1099? This presentation is for all kind of businesses, but also individuals that have Schedule C or a Schedule E. Schedule C as a sole prop or a Schedule E as a rental property. Here I put together for you some like the as you can see here, this is Form 1120. So as a C Corp, you always find this question. Did the corporation make any payment that would require you to file a Form 1099? And if yes, did the corporation file the form? So this is on the C Corp Schedule B. On the S Corp Schedule B also, question 14 asks the same thing. Did the corporation make any payments that would require to file Form 1099? And if yes, did the corporation file it? And then Form 1065 for partnership, same thing, same question. On Schedule C, this is on your individual tax return, on your 1040. If you have a sole prop business, if you file a Schedule C, you may be required to file a Form 1099, and they ask you the same thing. A Schedule E, if you have a rental property, you're asked the same thing. So this is basically for everybody that would this presentation would be a good value for. All right, what are the types of 1099s? We have a 1099 miscellaneous, 1099 NEC, non-employee compensation, and this is what we're going to focus on today. And there's a 1099 interest, dividends, retirement, distributions, 1099K, S, B, A, and C. The ones that we're going to focus on is the miscellaneous and non-employee compensation. Just to get the 1099 interest, you probably receive it from your banks. If you get any have interest in your banks, you usually get a 1099 interest. But also, if you borrowed money from somebody and you are paying them interest, you are required to send them a 1099 with the interest that you paid them. 1099 dividends you also get if you're having some stocks, or like you get it from your brokerage institutions. Retirement distribution you're mostly familiar with. 1099K, you get it if you receive payments using credit card. That's when they send it to you. 1099S is for sales proceed, like whenever you sell a house or a property, you usually get this form. 1099B, same thing, you get it from your brokerage institution. A is not so familiar to so many, and C is cancellation of debt, also not so familiar to a lot of you. So let's dive into the 1099 miscellaneous. This is how it looks like, and it has a couple of boxes. I want to focus on the one that's most relevant to most of you, the rent. So same thing. This is you receive if you are receiving rent, but you also may need to send it to somebody if you are paying rent to some business. So if you're a business and you are paying a rent to another business, you may need to send them a 1099 miscellaneous telling them how much rent you paid. Same thing, this is a lot of doctors are familiar with. This is what you mostly receive from hospitals and insurance companies and all of this when you get it. So doctors would be familiar with this form, but mostly like you won't really need to send it. This is you usually receive it most of the time. It used to be one form to record the non-employee compensation. It used to have its own box on the same form, 1099 miscellaneous. A couple of years back, they created a separate form only for the non-employee compensation. And it has mainly just one box for it. This box is if you made direct sales totaling 5,000 or more, you just need to check this box. But here you put in how much you paid your non-employee. All right, here, if you took any tax, if you withheld any tax, you're not required to unless there is a backup withholding, but most of you would only need to file this form with this box. All right, so who do I need to send a 1099 NEC to? Let's see what the IRS said about that. If the following 4 conditions are met, then you must generally report the payment as non-employee compensation. So if you made a payment to someone who's not your employee, why? Because if he's your employee, you send them a W-2. But if he's not your employee, if he's an independent contractor, then you have to send him a form. In what case? If you made the payment for services in the course of your trade or business. So even if you're a non-for-profit, non-for-profits also are required to report 1099s if they made the payment for service in the course of trade or business. So even though they're not for profit, but it is a trade or business. So if you made a payment, you may need to be sending out this form to the people that you're making the payment to. You made the payment to an individual, so it doesn't matter whether it's an individual, whether it's a partnership, whether it's an estate, or in some cases a corporation. So mainly you're not required to send to corporations, but in some cases, which we'll tell you about in the next slide, you need to send them a form. And there is a general rule that you make payments to the PE for at least $600 during the year. So if any of the other 3 conditions were met, but it's less than $600, then you don't really have to bother and you don't have to worry about it. So let's reverse this. When am I not required to send one? You're not required to send one if the following situations apply. First, you're not engaged in a trade or business. So if you are an individual and you're paying rent to some other person, to some other people, then you don't have to send them a 1099 miscellaneous with a rent, how much rent do you pay. So if you're an individual and you paid something for personal, you don't have to send it. If you're an individual, you don't have to worry about this presentation. Again, unless you're engaged in a trade or business like a Schedule C, as a sole prop or as a Schedule E in rental property, it is considered a trade or business, even if you're an individual, even if you don't have an LLC for it, and so on. So the first thing, you're not engaged in a trade or business. Second thing, you're engaged in a trade or business and the payment was made to another business that's incorporated. So usually if it's a corporation, you're not required to send them one unless the payment was for medical or legal service. And finally, if the sum of payments made to the person or unincorporated business is less than $600 in one tax year. So if it's less than 600, you don't have to worry about it. So next comes the question, how would I know if this is a corporation or if it's not a corporation, or what do I need to send it or not? So we say always ask for a W-9 form. And you should ask for it before you even start making payments. Like, don't wait till the end of the year when you have to file the 1099s and then ask them for the W-9. If you are not continuing to making payments, they most likely are not gonna send you the W-9 and they're gonna give you hard time. So always ask for it before you even start to make a payment. Let's take a look at the W-9 together. And the W-9, as you can see here, it says give form to the requester. So this is not something that's filed with the IRS. This is something that the person, that the vendor or the independent contractor gives to you. You ask them to fill out the W-9 form with their information. So here, as you can see, they put their name. If it's an entity, they put the business name. And here, they mark whether they're individual, C Corp, S Corp, partnership, and so on. And then if you see that as they're scheduled, they're treated as a C Corp or S Corporation, and they're not for legal or medical services, then you don't have to send them one, even if the payments is more than 600. All right, and this is usually like here where they put the social security or tax ID, and they sign it at the bottom and they give to you. You keep it for your records and for when you need to file the 1099s. When is the filing deadline? So for the 1099 NEC, it's January 31st, so end of this month. That's why I wanted to do this presentation. 1099 miscellaneous is it has two deadlines, February 28th if it's for with filing by paper, March 31st electronically. Is there a penalty for not filing? So for each form that's not filed, there is a penalty. So the penalty is not whether I filed or not filed, just in general, is for each single form. So if you have 4 PE and you only file 3, then you get penalized for 1 if you haven't filed it, and so on. So this is for each single form. It's $60 up to 30 days late. $130 if it's 31 days late through August 1st. After August 1st, or if you didn't file it at all, it's a $330 per form. And if you intentionally disregarded it, it's like $660. So the range from 60 to 660 is huge, and it can add up. Like, multiply this by the number of forms or the people that you had to send them one and you haven't. So it adds up huge. All right. Comes a big question that's very common now. What if I paid by a credit card? So if I paid a vendor by a credit card, or I use like a third-party network, like PayPal, like Venmo, like any of those, they usually they're having different reporting because they must be reported on Form 1099K. So they most likely the PE they would receive a Form 1099K. by the payment settlement entity. So if it's a PayPal or if it's, but it has different requirements, it has different thresholds. So if they are usually paid by credit card, they're not subject to reporting on Form 1099 NEC or 1099 miscellaneous. If you had to do it, then there is a way for you to report it, and if this case happened, you have to talk to your accountant so they're not double income on your tax return. I've seen it in so many cases. People receive 1099-Ks, especially like doctors when they receive 1099-Ks because they receive payments by credit card, and at the same time, the insurance company or the hospitals or so, they send them 1099 miscellaneous at the same time. That doesn't mean that you have to report this in addition to that, because there could be like in between, like or it could be double reported. So as long as you have your books in order and you have your bookkeeping in order and you can show that there is duplication and what did you receive by credit card versus what you received by checks or cash, you're in good position. So nothing to go crazy about. It's not the end of the world if you even had to double report it, but it's just for you to say you are not really subject to the reporting if you're paying by a credit card. All right. What else? Yeah, I'm sorry. The last thing is, what if I'm the recipient of an incorrect form? So what if I got a 1099 miscellaneous or 1099 NEC and it has the wrong information? People make mistakes all the time. Companies make mistakes all the time. So if you receive the wrong one, you have to contact the sender. You have to contact the payer. And if you can get this form corrected, most of the time they can correct it and send you a corrected one. I don't see a reason why not. And it happened before. Somebody sent me a form and I'm like, do you have a business? And they were like, no, I don't have a business. Like, you have this 1099 NEC with a 50K on it. They had to go back and they corrected it because it was a mistake by the person that initiated the form. So there is always a way for you to correct it. If you can't get it corrected for some reason, you can get in touch base with them or so. Just attach an explanation to your tax return and report your income correctly. When is this very critical is when you receive a 1099 NEC. For example, you're an individual, you received a 1099 NEC with 50K, as I was setting as an example, 50K in non-employee compensation, but then you don't have a Schedule C. Then you're not reporting this income on your tax return. This is a red flag. It triggers a just right away flag with the IRS. Why? Because the form, the 1099 form, you receive a copy of it and the IRS gets the other copy. So if they have a copy that you received a compensation of 50K and there's nowhere to be found on the tax return that you received this 50K, it's nowhere to be recorded, nothing. So this is a flag. Then you're under reporting your income. So unless you correct it, you need to attach an explanation why there is a 1099 NEC with this number, even though you're not reporting on your tax return. Where is the mismatch? Other cases where I see this relevant is when somebody receives a 1099 to their Social Security, but they do business as a corporation. But this is not a big deal. It doesn't need a correction. You just need to explain it on the tax return. All right, so that's a lot to cover in this topic. Of course, there's a lot of cases where you may need or you may not need to file. I just didn't want to overwhelm you with all the rules, so we went high level, just a summary of when you may need to file this form. So keep me posted. Let me know your feedback. What other topics you guys want me to talk about? If you have any questions about the 1099 specifically, whether you need to file or not, just shoot me an email or something, and or tell me in the comments below, and we'll get it done. All right, I'll stop sharing here. And I thank you guys for your time today. Bye-bye.